A marvelous morning to everyone gathered here. Welcome you all to the Guru Dakshata, the Faculty Development Program. We are here to get some insights on the topic, improving the quality and visibility of scientific research publications by the most renowned scientist, Dr. Shandar Ahmed, Professor, School of Computational and Integrated Sciences, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. Togetherness is a true blessing. That too during this pandemic, we are blessed to have gathered here together for a good reason. And now it's time to welcome the gathering. May I now request Ms. R. Niveta, Assistant Professor from Department of Biotechnology, to welcome the gathering. Ma'am, please.
Welcome the challenges, look for the opportunities in every situation to learn and grow in wisdom. Good morning, everyone. Honorable resource person, respected principal, faculty members, and other participants. A very warm welcome to all. On behalf of our department, it's my pleasure to welcome the eminent resource person, Professor Shandar Ahmed, School of Computational and Integrative Sciences, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. It's my honor in welcoming you, sir. I'm extremely happy to welcome our Madam Principal, Dr. V. Sujata. I extend my hearty welcome to Vice Principals, Deans, Controller of Examinations, and Deputy Controller. I also extend my warm welcome to Dr. H. Abhirami, Dean of Science, Department of Biotechnology, Dr. R. Rameshwari, Head in Charge, Department of Biotechnology, and fellow faculty members. I feel delighted to welcome heads of various departments and other participants for this faculty development program on improving the quality and visibility of scientific research publications. Once again, I welcome you all. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. May I now request our vibrant principal, ma'am, Dr. Mrs. V. Sujata, ma'am, to felicitate our speaker. Ma'am, please.
Good morning. I'm audible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So good morning to one and all gathered. Distinguished resource person, Dr. Shandar Ahmed, Professor, School of Computational and Interactive Science, Integrative Science, JNU, Delhi, Head of the Department of Biotechnology, and other heads and their dear participants. It's very great honor because I'm greatly honored to invite the resource person today. I thank the pandemic. Now JNU is meeting Cauvery means it's only possible because of pandemic. And our intention is to make you to understand what is going on in and around India about the publications and research. You know that now the NIRF window separately opened for research and publication. And so that's why we wanted to make our teachers to have more research experience, and they wanted to do some projects. That's why we made this, there is a faculty development program, particularly to motivate teachers. And I appreciate the Department of Biotechnology to such an experienced and well-known person from the JNU is invited. It's one of the popular university in India. And really, it's going to be very useful and a very enlightening person he's going to do with you. And I thank and congratulate our resource person for extending this wonderful opportunity to meet the young teachers of Cauvery College of Women, Annamalai Nagar, Tiruchirappalli. Thank you. Wish you all the best. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the words, ma'am. Thank you so much. The moment we awaited for has come, and we have with us the most distinguished Dr. Shandar Ahmed, and I take the pride of introducing our guest speaker for today's session. At present, Professor Shandar Ahmed is serving as a professor at School of Computational and Integrative Sciences, Jawaharlal Nehru University, Delhi, and he has been the dean of the school during 2018 to 20 and was the chief coordinator of communication and information services of JNU during 2018 to 19. He has also been appointed as research scientist at National Institute of Biomedical Innovation, Japan, and has won many awards and accolades. To his credit, he has more than 100 research publications in top journals. Many of his papers are published in journals with impact factor of more than 10, and he has citations of nearly 3,449 with a H index of 30. He has worked with many national and international institutions and is still in an honorary visiting scientist at Osaka, Japan. He has addressed many international audiences as an invited and keynote speaker in various conferences such as INCOP, VetHome, etc. And he's also going to be on leadership teams of APBC 2021 conference in Malaysia and CIBCB 2021 in Australia. Professor Shander was ranked number 4 on the list of best bioinformaticians in India, and his thrust areas of research include bioinformatics, big data analytics, and complex systems. His research group is the forerunner in developing many bioinformatics software tools for various purposes such as binding site prediction, DNA shape, or indirect readout product prediction tools, etc. And right now, his team is working on data driven algorithms and applications of biological data. More than just a scientist, he is a science enthusiast. And he heads an exciting and dynamic research group called Sci-Fi Labs and also runs a YouTube channel by this name with many subscribers. Apart from being a scientist, he also doubles up as a poet in Urdu and English. And we are very honored to have such an eminent speaker with a interdisciplinary knowledge and experience who is most appropriate for delivering this topic. With this short introduction, may I now request Dr. Shander Ahmed to share his insights. So please.
Thank you very much. Can I have the screen now, please? Okay. Thank you very much for the nice introduction, and first of all for inviting me to join. And as Dr. Sujata said, that the virtual world has enabled long distance meetings, and we otherwise would find it such a big hassle to travel and meet each other. It's wonderful to have more than 100 people already joining here and interact on a very important topic. I come from JNU, and this university, this college, Cauvery, we have a Cauvery hostel in JNU, but we spell it with K, and now it is interesting to see the spelling of the college with C. So that also shows the diversity of our approaches to not only science, but also the linguistic pronunciations and the way we look at or we communicate with each other. I think I was mute all this while, so I'll have to repeat what I said. I said something. So can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
You are audible only, sir.
Yeah. You were audible earlier?
Yes, sir.
But I was showing mute myself. I don't know. On my screen, I was mute. So you heard me saying Cauvery with C and K. Okay. So, okay. So it's a great pleasure to interact with scientists. Many of you are already active, and it may be that many in the audience are already more familiar about scientific research quality, how to get collaborations, how to get the visibility to science. And there are, a good scientist are trained over a period of time, over the years. And to expect to condense our experiences in a matter of an hour is almost impossible for all of us. And I mean, some of these experiences that you have. So what these lectures serve is kind of raise some pointers to a few topics that we may be aware, but sometimes we may not be consciously paying attention to them. So that will be my effort today, to bring out, put in order a few things which have drawn my attention and which I think are important to perform quality research, publish in good journals, and improve the visibility. So if you find that you already know these things, you find these trivial things, you feel free to interact and add the points towards the end, because the question and answer session has been placed in the end. So we can discuss beyond what has been said in the lecture. So I start now sharing my screen, and I'll go to. Okay, so I was already introduced. I run this lab called Sci-Fi Lab, and we have this website, scifilab.org, where so usually people name their research labs by their own names, like my Shandar's lab, for example, it could have been, or it could have been by their names, or sometimes they name by a research topic specifically they are addressing. I call it Sci-Fi Lab, and the Sci-Fi Lab is a integration of itself, because our school is a school of computational and integrative sciences. Actually, most of the integrative sciences today are essentially computational sciences, because without a proper computation, you cannot integrate scientific knowledge, particularly in the life sciences. So I put a lot of integration into the name of the lab, Sci-Fi. scientific and question psi, why do we do science? And the psi and y are also the Greek alphabets, like psi come from Greek and y comes from English. And sci-fi, most importantly, sci-fi is a Japanese word which means happiness. So integrating these things, so it reflects our thought about the lab, that our lab tries to draw happiness out of doing scientific research, out of raising scientific queries. And now today's discussion is how do we do good quality research, how to publish in good journals, and how can, after we have published good papers and we are very proud of it, how can we avoid becoming anonymous and without being noticed properly? So how can we improve the visibility, and what are the tools available to the scientists today to make their research more visible and to knock at the doors of people who have shut themselves shut themselves from our less privileged researchers. So, but I start with a counterpoint to my discussion. Many of the great names, some great names have never become famous during their lifetimes. Some of them did have a big platform, were visible, but they didn't become acceptable. So there are two issues. One is that you are obscure, people do not know you are doing something great, and you are completely invisible. And the other aspect is that you are visible, but people really do not appreciate your thoughts. People do not really agree with what you are saying. And people find what you are saying is either wrong or it is too uh, challenging to their current beliefs. So I listed them some 4 personalities here. 3 of them are scientists, one of them from arts, to add this to that this problem is not restricted to science, but runs through all aspects of human knowledge and endeavor. Galileo, for instance, all of us know, was when he talked about the laws of motion, studied the planetary motion, and kind of ascribed to the Copernicus view of the astronomy. Then he faced a lot of religious persecution. And ultimately, towards the end of his career, he had to apologize for what he had said to the church. So his ideas were not accepted because they were not in conformity with the existing belief of the powers of the time. Mendel, again, was doing great research, and he gave some very path-breaking ideas and experimental results, but these results were not immediately accepted. Part of the problem was that it was new, but another problem was that it was many of the researchers tried to reproduce his results, but they could not reproduce it. So kind of the scientific community did not have enough instruments and enough knowledge to put in perspective his ideas, his research, and try to appreciate it. Ludwig Boltzmann gave the atomic theory about or made the foundation of the whole statistical mechanics. But again, these ideas were ahead of his times and were not accepted immediately. And until Rutherford later on tried to prove his ideas and found how important they are for the understanding of basic sciences, that they didn't become popular. So all of these 3 scientists particularly did not have the problem of remaining invisible. They were visible to some extent. They had access to the scientific knowledge and they were able to produce good knowledge. But their problem was mostly that their ideas were too revolutionary. And Van Gogh, on the other hand, was an artist. He was drawing, and he himself, during his lifetime, his paintings did not receive that much of attention. And it is said that only one of his painting was actually was sold during his lifetime. Most of his paintings, which became really very big, very famous paintings, happened to be so only after he was no more. So, as I said, there are two issues. One is that sometimes we are not visible, or even we are not visible because we are sitting in some remote corner of the world. We are doing something nice, but world who really can benefit from that knowledge is not aware that something nice is being done in some corner of the world. So this is the problem of the invisibility. On the other hand, you may be visible, you may be sitting on the highest pedestal in the scientific field, but still your ideas that you are presenting are so revolutionary or so weird, so to say, that people are not willing to invest their time in you because they are too much invested into the alternative views of the world, alternative view of the scientific knowledge. But then the question arises, what is more important, to become great or to become famous? And here comes this quote, very nice quote I found that says, do not confuse notoriety and fame with greatness. For you see, greatness is a measure of one's spirit, not a result of one's rank in human affairs. So the fame, the visibility, the acceptability are a matter of human affairs. That's what it says. Whereas the fame are a matter of human affairs, but the greatness, on the other hand, is not a matter of human affairs. Greatness is a matter of one's spirit, one's soul's. You feel great, you feel good about something, and you do something great. So the very question is, do we really want, if we are doing something great, is it really important to become famous? Is it really important to be visible or to be known by others to be great? Or it is just enough to be great, to be doing something great, to have found a scientific fact, which only you have found, nobody else knows about it. Is it good enough to have found that scientific fact, scientific theory, or scientific secret that nobody knows? Is it enough for you to know this and die with that knowledge? Or it is important to make it, to share it with the scientific community and the world at large? So here comes one interesting um, view on this, which says, which tells you why it is important to be famous or to be known by others. Because if you have done something great, I quote it from Bible. As a matter of chance, I found this interesting quotation. So it says, neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on the candlestick, and it giveth light unto all that are in the house. So what it says is that if you have something nice, some light of knowledge in this case, light of scientific discovery in this case, why to hide it? This light is not meant for just yourself, but this light is for the world to see, for to make use of this light and see things which they would otherwise not see. I quote it also from my own poetry, which is also a similar view, which says how a star should act. On the right, I have written in Urdu, and then the translation on the left, it says, इतराए चमकने पर दुनिया को करे रोशन, जो अर्श का मोती है वो कैद सदफ क्यों हो. So I don't know, I know that none of you understand Urdu, but I just read it to make you feel how it sounds like. And the translation is that, look, let it boast of its glitter. Let it illuminate the world bright. If it is the pearl of the skies, on this dark night, why should it obscure itself in the prison of a seashell's delight? That is, a star must shine, and a star must let the light be felt and experienced by the rest of the world. So, the visibility and the urge to be famous is not misplaced. It is not just for yourself. It is not the fame or the visibility of your work is not just for the excitement about your work, but it is also for the benefit of the world, because your knowledge is a heritage of the world, your knowledge is useful for the world. Now, how to become useful, how to become visible, and how to really share your light. And you say you have a candle, but you are sitting in such a remote corner. How can you make this candle become a star that people can, in the farthest places, can see? Of course, we are connected now. The farthest places, physical distances do not matter. We are here in the virtual meeting, and physical distances have shrunk. But the distances have not disappeared. Distances are not necessarily physical in nature. Distances are the distances of communication, distances of barrier in sending to the right people what is relevant for them. So the distances in the digital world are also as big as the physical world. These distances may not be geographical distances. It may be just somebody is sitting 10 kilometers away from me, but he's so distant, he doesn't know I'm doing some nice research on the same topic that he's trying to find. Or I already have an answer to the question that he is spending his nights in trying to find an answer for that. So these distances are the distances we are talking about, that in the remotest places of the scientific world, there are some wonders happening, and there are some interesting things happening. And many of the big people and many others, maybe in another, not just necessarily sitting on the bigger pedestal, but maybe in one remote corner, somebody is trying to do something which has already been done by somebody else in another corner. So how to make this, what we have done, the questions that we have already answered, how to make them visible? So the challenge is in the earlier times, during the times of Galileo and Mendel and all those early scientists, so to say, these scientists had a very elite network of scientific communication. Science was not a popular activity. Some elites were interested in science and they used to communicate with each other individually, or they used to get together into big meetings and share their findings. So, but today science is a proper profession. It's an activity held in a it is an activity pursued by common man who is interested in science. It is not no longer an elitist activity, and now there's a whole industry of publication. So when we say popularizing our scientific research, we essentially are very often are talking about popularizing our scientific publications, because ultimately all the science, all the research today has to go through the channel of research publications. So that this is, on the one hand, it is very good that we publish things. As soon as we publish, they go into the public domain. And this, within this public domain, although it is a public domain, sounds like everything is in the open and everybody is reading what everybody else is doing. But within this huge milieu, there are still invisible corners. In fact, most of the research is invisible. Very little of that really gets attention. And what draws attention, as I say in this slide, that in just PubMed, this PubMed collects the research only from biomedical sciences. This is the number of papers that are being published. You see, in 2020, 1.6 million papers were published. So 1.6 million papers, publications, which are indexed in PubMed, and many more published in predatory and other journals which are not really indexed by PubMed. This is only the biomedical field. Computer science may be an equal number, and maybe other fields and even larger numbers are already there. So millions of papers are getting published, but not millions of papers can become famous. And it is a huge burden on a scientist to keep pace with such a large amount of knowledge being produced every day. So out of these papers, some of them will become famous, some of them will become visible, and most of the rest of them will just publish and perish. So there is a saying in scientific career, in these in the promotions and all, they say publish or perish. But publish or perish is like, if you do not publish papers, your career is gone. But there is also in this context, there is an aspect that you publish and perish. That is, you publish, and what you publish perishes quickly, because what you are saying is not of really much scientific value, or it has a scientific value, but it has not been noticed by the right people. So there comes the question that we are trying to address. So how to get people noticed? Then there are many privileged scientists who typically get a lot of citations, who get very highly noticed. How they reach there? So one thing is the privilege of being famous or privilege of being noticed. Sometimes you become famous or people notice your research just because you are you. It is not that some important scientist or well-cited or famous scientist is doing something very different or hugely more important or more rigorously than a person not sitting in that privileged position. Then what gives that person a privilege? Should we just feel jealous about his privilege, or there is more to it than that? So there, you see, if you read the quotes, and like the quote I gave you from Bible or from my poetry, many of these quotations that the big people have said, Gautam Buddha has said, or the scientists have said, or Mahatma Gandhi has said, many of these statements, statements as such, if you see, may be very simple statement anybody can make. If somebody says, always tell the truth, honesty is the best policy. These are not the statements that a common man cannot make. Every common man makes these kind of statements. But why they carry the weight, why they are associated, why when we make this statement and we also write the name of the person who has said this, is not because of that is the strength, the power of that statement itself. But it is also because the credibility of the speaker and the credibility of the person who has said this. So the person has reached that point, or the philosophy has reached that point where it brings a credibility and it brings the attention of its own. So a statement is not a statement its own. It happens in science. When you write a research paper, when a person who has no track record in science, when that person writes a paper, and the person who has a long track record of science, the first prejudice in the mind of the research, in the mind of the reviewers, or in the mind of editors, may be guided, and it is debatable whether it is completely unjustified or justified. People may debate, but the reason is that people have reached that position of privilege in the scientific standing through hard work, through consistently doing good work. So now, what are these privileges? How these privileges show up? What are the instruments of this privilege? So many of these famous authors have large networks in public resources. They are on the LinkedIn, and you will find there are thousands of followers. So as soon as they publish a paper, thousands of people immediately notice that paper. On the other hand, you write a paper, you have 4, 5, 10 people, or somebody has 10 followers, and the research gets lost and it doesn't reach the audience. So this media, this um, network of people that comes from your privilege is a big source of your research getting noticed. Secondly, journals in which you publish, they promote what they call the most important research, and the most important research, they do aggressive marketing about this. They send emails to the people they find relevant. They do a lot of artificial intelligence based targeted audience. Okay, this is a new paper. These are the keywords present in this paper. This is the text analysis. And therefore, they have a database of researchers who may be interested in this research. So they send emails aggressively. So the papers and the works get noticed. And then again, as I said, the privileged space of the social media is held by these established researchers. But also when you try to, you say, okay, I do not have a big social networks, but I want to publish in a big journal. Because why do I want to publish in a big journal? Is because maybe if I publish in a big journal, more people will notice it, because journal has its own following. So I will ride on the popularity of the journal, and my research will be able to will get the attention because of the attention that the journal typically draws. Now here you are trying to use the privilege of the journal to get noticed. So privilege is still there. The journal has the privilege, the followership, the network of people who are trying to constantly follow the journal is the network that you are trying to ride on. And then that is why you want to publish in the most visible, most highest impact factor in that kind of journals. So again, we are trying to latch on to this privilege. So this again, when you try to do this, you want to publish in a big journal, then these journals themselves, they are building the privilege, and this is a privileged network, a privileged author and a privileged journal, and you are an outsider, you want to publish there, but the journal space, big journal space, is also dominated by the established networks of researchers, sometimes justifiably, but sometimes unjustifiably. They promote each other's papers. They may be networks. And these networks of people who are promoting each other's papers with the relatively lenient scrutiny of their works do exist. But again, as I said, the question is, we don't our approach is not to complain about it or to feel bad about it. Our approach has to be to deal with it. And the question that has is, can our quality research break these barriers? So these are the barriers for new researchers who are not already privileged. If you are already privileged, visibility is not a problem for you. If you are privileged, your funds are not a problem for you. So you get, as faculty members, if you are privileged, you will get good researchers, good students coming to you. And many a times they will be doing a lot of good research, and you will be basking in the glory of their achievements. So this is the privileged uh, group on the one hand, and my talk is particularly addressing people who are not privileged, and how can they make the research visible. But I also make a clarification that this privilege that people have achieved, or the journals have achieved, is an outcome of their hard work. So it is, if you consistently do great work, you may also earn this privileged position, and that is what research should also aim to do, to build your reputation, to build your networks, scientific networks where you can discuss your ideas, where you can share your ideas, where your ideas can get refined. This you will have to have access to people who can refine your idea. So this is the question. We, the mortals of scientific research, we, the mortals here, are the people who are not in that privileged network of journals, privileged network of research scientists, who, by their very name, by their very definition of the or the place of work, they get the visibility. So how to break these barriers? So, but we have to remember, I started with discussion with big scientists who were privileged and they were working for glory, for greatness. Many of these less privileged scientists like us may not be working for glory. We do not have access to the privileged networks. We do not have preferential treatment in getting published or cited. So why do we do research? Why are we here? So then again, here I have a small couplet from Urdu. I just translated. I'll not read Urdu this time. So what it says is, here I knock the door and I forgot why I'm here, why I'm knocking this particular door. And these things come to my mind that perhaps we do research publication. We, people who are not working in the top rated universities or top rated research institute, or we are not connected to a bigger network of research scientists, but we still want to do research. We still want to do our work. So this can be due to any of these reasons. We might do it just for passion. We always had a passion to do good science and to become to produce something scientifically useful. That passion continues, although due to several reasons we may not have pursued. We may have not either by choice or by chance, we may have not reached this privileged network of researchers. So, but our passion continues, and we want to do good. We want to do good science. So this may be one reason. One reason could be we want to get promotions. We now our university puts a condition that okay, you have to have 4 papers in this impact factor of journal. So we want to do that. There's nothing to be to feel guilty about it. If we want to do research or if we want to do something scientific, if our purpose of doing scientific research is promotion or professional growth, this is perfectly fine. Never feel guilty about it. Or if you're doing it for money, you want to do you want to do a research which will produce a patent, and that patent can be brought to the market and it will bring you money. There's nothing to feel guilty about it. This is a legitimate desire, but it has to be legitimately pursued. So having a legitimate objective of professional growth or the financial growth through a scientific idea or scientific outcome is legitimate. Somebody may just do it pastime. Okay, I have a lot of free time. What should I do? Maybe I should write a research paper. I should do some research. I go to the lab or I do a computational research. So this can be one. I can write a review article or I can write a textbook if I'm not so ambitious in terms of research. All these are useful academic activities. So I may be doing it for pastime. So I may also be doing it with peer pressure. Some people may say, okay, everybody in my department is made up of 20 people. Everybody is publishing paper in impact factor of 3, impact factor of 5 or 10 or 20, even 20. And I am not publishing anything. So if I don't publish, I'm already a professor. So it does not harm my career greatly. I'm already there. I'm already, maybe in the later years, somebody may be in the later years of his career. And so career-wise, it is of no use. Financial benefits, no, in our country. If you publish 100 papers or if you publish 2 papers, your salaries are equal. Your students are not really impressed if you do a lot of research, maybe a little bit. But sometimes if you sit in the meetings and every colleague of yours is posting, today I published a paper in this big journal. And another people comes, okay, I have come up with this great idea and this is a great finding. So this puts a pressure on us to produce research. So out of peer pressure, we might doing it. Whether it is right or wrong, that is another matter. Whether we should really do research because of the peer pressure, I'm not sure if that is the right thing. Maybe you should do something different and which is suitable to you and which is appropriate to you and which is a demand of your profession. But these may be some of the reasons that people are trying to publish regularly and publish in a good journal. So now, how do we navigate the intellectual space? Now, when I mentioned about the privileged spaces, this is not the space that we are fighting for. We are fighting for the intellectual space, which lies at the bottom and in the middle of the research ladder. And if you are fighting for the top, it will not come in a single step. Maybe once you are in the middle or somewhere at the higher end, you can fight for the highest space, but you cannot just go from the bottom of the research ladder and you aim some professional activity which will take you to the top. Maybe something may happen as a matter of fluke or as a matter of miracle, but under a normal course, in a realistic scenario, you should fight for the space which is immediately next to you first. So within the, you define your range of research activity. Okay, I'm currently, this is my current standing in the scientific field. How can I go 2 notch up or 4 notch up? So depending on your circumstances, you will define your immediate targets. You should not be thinking, okay, I should do something great and overnight I'll get to a Nobel Prize research, because that might lead to something which is not practical and which may actually affect you, which will make you unhappy, because you may not be reaching where you want to reach. So having realistic targets and understanding your space in the scientific ladder and gradually building up on this ladder, gradually riding this ladder, becomes a good approach for strategically planning your career growth. So now comes the question, how can we improve the quality of research and how can we improve the visibility of the research? So the quality can come through the improvement in the scientific contents of your work. You improve, you do better, and hope that you will be noticed and your quality will improve. So the quality is made up of 3 parts in my view. One is your research is of a very high caliber. So that is the scientific contents of your work are good. But scientific content of your work is only 1/3 of the game in scientific publication. There are many people who do wonderful research, who are very knowledgeable, who know a lot of science. Their laboratory work is excellent. Their mathematics is great. Their programming skills are excellent. But still, they do not know how to write a paper. They never finish their work. They never know when to end. Okay, now it is the time. My results are ready. Now I should write a paper. Or once they start writing the paper, they do not know how to put a paper and get it published, get it accepted, because they are very poor at writing. And somehow if they even publish the paper, nobody really reads the paper, because when the readers start reading the paper, they found they're not either not interesting, though too boring, too lengthy, or too incoherent. So, as I said, the scientific content or scientific finding of your work are only 1/3 of the game. Second game is writing quality paper, right, using the right structure and the organizing your contents in a manner that people want to read it in, people are familiar with. And the third and not less important is the editorial and reviewers communication. Editors will read your paper. Sometimes they will find that your letter is not compelling enough. They will not even send your paper for review. So first you have to write your letters to the editors in such a way, or you have to present your work in such a way that the editors feel that this is worthwhile. Now, what will be the basis of an editor's decision to review your paper or not? Editors' job is also to get into the privilege. You are also trying to go to the next ladder in the privileged scientific ladder. Editors are also trying to take their journal in the scientific ladder upwards. So many times editors are interested in, for instance, increasing the impact factor of their journal. So they will look at your paper, they will see, okay, this paper does not have any audience. It will not most likely get any citations. And therefore, they might not be too interested or enthusiastic about reviewing it. Your paper, they might say no to your paper, not because they have seen the quality. An editor cannot assess the quality of your work, but because the subject matter that you are dealing with or the way you are writing it is not convinced that it is useful for the job. And then comes, once you have crossed the hurdle of the editors, then it comes the reviewers. Reviewers will read your papers. Who will read your papers? Maybe the people who are already there in that field. Now, if you are coming up with something extraordinarily revolutionary or something totally different and unusual in the existing field, reviewers will definitely, most likely, scrutinize you more thoroughly, and justifiably so, because the perspective, the context in which you are putting your questions or you're putting your answers are not consistent with the view. And if you are coming up with a totally new view and totally different idea, then People have to see whether are you really competent to say what you are saying. Do we really have the credibility to be able to say something path breaking? And have you really, or it is your path breaking approach that you are trying to make a claim? Is it really a scientific claim, or it is just your wishful thinking? So that kind of now when the reviewer gives you the comments, and they will ask you all those questions and how to address those questions. That is what I'll come to a few points that you should keep in mind when addressing these questions. So then the visibility comes from by finding the relevant audience, convincing your peers that my work is good, please read it, what I'm saying is correct, getting them and read your paper. So, this has been a problem in all fields. So many times people do great creative activity, and so they think that their creative activity is great. They write a poetry, they draw a painting, or they do anything nice, and they want it they want to be appreciated. But it is not easy to find the right audience really interested in what. So if you are singing well, you record a song and you ask your friends to please listen to the song. Your song may be better recorded than the most famous singer of the time, but still people will go to the famous singer song because they have these prejudices, they have the preconceived, because they do not expect you have to have done a great job. So this is also a scientific management of your research. It is part of your duty to present your work in such a way to convince your peers to read your paper and to comment and to receive comments on the paper. And gradually, over the time, when you consistently do great research, people will be interested in what you're reading, and everybody in your field, somebody who was not noticing you earlier, and now he sees that you have been writing good papers, they would like to see your name, and then immediately they would like to see, okay, what this person has written. Let me read the abstract. It is really something interesting, because everybody wants to keep updated about the knowledge of in the field. And if somebody has an answer to the question I'm pursuing, I should not be ignorant about it. So as a reader, it is my duty to keep abreast. In library science, they have a rule that every book is reader and every reader is book. So just as a reader as just as a book has a right to reach the right kind of reader, a reader also has a right to reach the right kind of the book. And that can be achieved by, it is to some extent the responsibility of the author to take their paper to the right audience. And then once they are convinced, that you have to make them cite your work. So these are the few points that I've written. And how can you improve the contents? The first part was the scientific content. So scientific content can be improved by identifying your research question correctly, planning your research, designing your experiments. You will find these kind of topics everywhere in the research methodology books and all. But from the point of view, whether your paper will be accepted or not, what you have to think about is from the early stage when you're designing your research questions, before you start doing research, you have to identify what question you are addressing. What has given you this new idea of research? What you might think, okay, this is the scientific question, which is very relevant. Everybody is working on COVID these days, so let me do some work on COVID. And what just this is not enough. Just finding a fancy question or a popular question or an important question of the time is not sufficient. It is important nonetheless. You want to work in a field which is of interest to the scientific community or to the society at large. Don't be idealistic here that if everybody is working on COVID, I will not work on COVID because this is too fashionable and I want to work in some niche area. No, this is not the right thing. You have to find the societal needs of the time. You have to find the scientific needs of the time and choose the topic. But just finding the topic is not enough because that's a broad area. You have to understand your scientific question, and your scientific question should be a question that you can answer. You have the capability of answering this. So you have to be very careful. So you have to read the literature. You have to understand this is the problem. This is how the question has been addressed in other areas, similar areas, and this is where the gap is. Then you plan, research, and design. Again, when you do the research, planning, and designing your experiments, it should be thorough. Do not just go in the lab and pick up some test tubes and start doing an experiment. No. Plan your experiment very well on your paper. Make a flow chart and you see, okay, this is what I have to do. So you should not be performing experiments as you reach them. Right before you start, you should know this is the question I want to address, and these are the experiments that have to be done to address this question. And until the last stage, all the experiments that you will have to do, all the knowledge that you will have to collect, all the experts that you will have to contact, they should be listed in the beginning. So you know where you stand and you can plan, okay, you have done 50% of your work or 60% of your work. And then while you are executing your work, you have to be thorough. Details, devil lies in the details. Pay attention to the details. Don't be casual. So that is where the quality matters, how rigorous you are in your work. Many a times, the amount of knowledge that the best scientist of the times and an ordinary scientist sitting in a remote university, their knowledge of a subject may not be very different, but their attitudes may be different. Attitude of a famous or an established scientist will be to look into the details or get these details checked by the right kind of people. So you assemble a team in which there are people who know one aspect, there are other people who know another aspect. I'll come to that, how to find the collaborations. And then you have to be thorough in interpreting your results. Do not over interpret your results. Do not incorporate your beliefs into your results. I wanted this result to be this way. So do not define or decide your results before you do the experiment. Keep your mind open. That's the scientific thinking. And once the results come, you interpret them dispassionately, without any belief, without any expectation. They may or may not be according to your expectations. So now, how to improve the scientific content? You can say, well, these are some tips that I have put here together. So these are the approaches you can take. You collaborate, you innovate, you investigate, and authenticate. So collaboration is very important. I'll highlight the significance of collaboration here because I've already built my discussion in terms of having a privileged group of people in journal on the one hand who have access to visibility and quality, and people who are not so privileged in this. So how can we bridge this gap? How can we reach into those networks of high privilege and how to do good work without being there? So collaboration is one approach to this. Innovation is another. And then this comes the quality of that I just mentioned, that you have to be thorough, you have to investigate. Your research does not stand in isolation of others. That thousands of people are addressing some question. They are doing some research and you in some corner without reading what they are doing, you do your own. Maybe what you are doing, somebody may have done 50 years ago, or somebody may have just published. So investigate, keep yourself updated with what others are doing. So your research should be well connected with the knowledge that is being generated by others. And your knowledge, your statements should be authentic. When you say X influences Y, everybody should trust X influences Y. It should not be that X was influencing some Z and Z was influencing Y and you thought X is influencing Y. So your conclusions have to be authentic. So, but here, the 2 points I will specifically look into: the collaboration and innovation and the challenges that you can address. Now, when you look for collaborators, when you plan a research that this is what I want to do, this is the research I want to do. I want to design a vaccine for COVID. This is a need of the society. Then I look at my expertise in the field, and then I look at rest of this expertise on topics that I do not have. I look for collaboration. So I look for collaboration either to uh, beef up the skills that I do not have or my team does not have. So I want to have collaborators at a horizontal level, at the same level as mine. Or I may want to look at collaborations so that I can take their help to make my research more visible, so that they can check the quality of my work, so they can, from their experience, they can tell us that if you write the paper in this way, this will not be accepted. You write this way, this may be accepted. If you, so I may be drawing on their experience. So what are the different issues based on which we look for this? So in a collaborator, you look for the complementarity of the skill set. So what I have, my collaborator has, I have to make a complementary story about it. And then I look for the relevance of the topic. I should not just keep on assembling a lot of collaborators. Okay, I meet over a cup of tea and I say, okay, I'm doing this research on this topic. Would you like to join? No, don't randomly make people join your collaborations. Collaboration has to be purposeful. You have to understand the topic. You have to have the compatibility with others. So compatibility may be scientific and also have to be personal compatibility. And it should not be that you are coordinating a project and you are interacting with the 20 collaborators, and in 20 collaborators, each of them does not talk to each other. Everybody talks only through you. So that kind of collaboration is also a little weak collaboration, because everybody should be able to communicate with each other and there should be a free exchange of ideas. So the compatibility for the problem that you are addressing. Your collaborators on one research paper may be totally different from your collaborators in another paper, because that paper requires different kind of expertise, different types of inputs or expectations. So this is important. They should be relevant. And of course, don't feel, again, idealistic here, that I don't collaborate with big people. I don't collaborate with privileged people. Although somewhere I am also trying to look for that privilege, but I'm still saying, oh, I want to take an idealist position. That doesn't work. There's no idealistic position here. This is all a practical professional research, and you have to do all, you have to use all the techniques, all the tools that are at your disposal. So you have to look for collaborations with people who have high reputation and standing in the field. So this reputation and standing, I told you, has not been built and has not been inherited. It may have come because of a consistently high quality research that these people have been doing. And this contributes to your research because they have the experience of where the paper fails, what are the weaknesses in a paper, which are most frequent reasons for rejection of a paper. So if I have been reviewing thousands of papers in my lifetime, I have already received say 500 research papers or 600 research papers. I know why out of 600 papers, 400 were rejected and why 100 were accepted. So this experience is not available to those who are early stage scientists or who do not have that privileged position of scientific publication. So so collaborating with the right people is very important. So these right people may be influential people, may be not influential people. So you have to have a mix of collaborations, but then you have to be also aware about what are the risks in this, but also look at whenever we collaborate and then whenever we build a relationship, any relationship, it is not just, no relation can exist on one way. So when we are going to meet collaborators, you are going to add members to your team of research. You have to also understand what is their expectation from you. So they will, and what will they look, whether they will agree to collaborate with you or not. You write to the most influential person in this field, in your field, and you say, I want to collaborate with you. You may not even get a reply from them. So what do the expert looking for you when they are agreeing to collaborate with you? They may look at your personal track record of and you also, this is what you look for, what collaborators. Okay, I went here. This was the additional how to choose your collaborators. I was still there. So there are these collaborators should be easy to work with. You should have trust on these researchers, that what they are reporting, their research work is credible. They are honest in dealing. So you should also look at the personal um, reputation of the researchers with you are collaborating with. And you also try to avoid certain types of collaborations because that might give you problems. If a research, as I said, you might be dealing with, you might be ambitious. Okay, I want to collaborate with the best person in the field, but the best person in the field may be too busy, and that person will maybe he will agree. Okay, because of some one reason or the other, he will say, okay, yes, I will collaborate. Put my name on your research grant. Put my name on the research paper. But when it comes to actual research, that person may not have enough time to contribute to your work. So that collaboration is really not useful, because that is just the reputation that you're using. And I think that will not pay any dividends. So then second is you have to also avoid sometimes very influential people, because you should be able to communicate with your collaborators at equal. So if you have some concerns, and if you have, for instance, typical issue would be the order of authorships. You have certain idea of who should be the first author, and suddenly your influential guy has some other interest, and he says, oh, this person should be the first author. Will you have the ability to say no? You should have the ability. If you should collaborate only with such people with whom you can freely exchange your ideas, freely exchange your aspirations, and also listen to them. So you should not be rigid as well, but the discussion has to be transparent and effective, and you should not be under the awe of your collaborators. The collaboration has to be an equal activity after all. So sometimes in the big chairs, you will find very small people sitting in the big chairs. You have to avoid collaborating with them. And this is another group of people you should avoid. Many times people think, okay, I have my wife is working or my husband is working in the same field. Let us all husband and wife collaborate with each other, or my brother. And so I think, in my opinion, avoid the collaboration with the family member or close relative. Does not add value to research. because most of the knowledge that you have, typically, most likely, your other partner has, and there may not be a free exchange of views, and the credibility that builds is not really. But yes, I want to make an exception here. There may be a situation when your professional compatibility happens to be with a person with whom you are also related. But being related should not be the criteria of joining a research team. The professional compatibility, professional questions should be more important, and it is better to expand your horizons. It is not you should not make small world networks. Your network should grow. If you keep on collaborating with a limited number of people, and so your ideas will never expand, you will not get novel ideas, you will not expand your knowledge, you will be working only within those close circles. So this has to be, in my view, has to be avoided. Now, as this a question I already started talking about without this slide coming up. So what does a collaborator expect from you? A collaborator will expect why a senior person will agree to collaborate with you. Very often that senior person will agree to collaborate if you have a good research plan and if you have a clear role definition. Okay, you are my collaborator in this paper and I want you to do this. I want you to do the mathematical analysis, or I want you to do the molecular biology experiment, or I have a specific plan that in my plan, these are the 4 types of work required, and I need your help in this one. Maybe somebody writes paper very well. So you can tell from the beginning, I'll do this research, you please help me in writing the paper. And then tell, okay, I will have 5 authors in this paper, you will be the 3rd author. So this kind of an exchange of views and the deal should be made from an early stage. And your of course, when somebody will agree to you, they will also look at the credibility. Do you have the capability to deliver on what you're saying? That you say that I want to, as I said, just a rough example, a casual example, I want to design a drug for COVID. So when you ask the collaborators, the best drug design expert in the country, I say, and you write to that person, I want to design inhibitors for spike protein in COVID. So they will look at your track record. What have you published before? What is your research standing? Can that researcher trust you to lend his name to your research? So they will look at, the collaborators will look at this, and sometimes they will look at, if you give them a research plan, they will read through the plan. They will look at the feasibility of your work, the utility, whether what you are trying to do is really useful or not. But, and of course, do not think that your collaborator is a very senior person. He has no aspirations, he has no expectations, he will do a charity work. No, or everybody is here in this for professional reasons, and they have professional needs. There is some message here. I'll take your questions. There are some questions in the chat box. I'll finish my talk and then I'll take your questions. Nimita, is there any time limit? I can continue for some more time.
Yes, sir. Yes, Professor, you can.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So I'll try to speed up. I think I've been a little slow. So what does a collaborator expect from you? As I was saying, that collaborators are also into the collaboration with their own needs. Why are they collaborating with you? Is that they also want recognition of their contribution, commensurate with their professional standing. So as I said, all your collaborators do not have to be senior people. Some of these collaborators will be junior people. Some of them will be the same professional stage at yours. So choose your team of collaborators carefully and understand what are their needs. They need recognition, or they need, and the recognition has to be commensurate with their professional standings. So you cannot take a very senior author, a senior researcher as your collaborator, and you say, you put their name somewhere, say the first authorship, and you write the wrong acknowledgement. So you have to understand the sensibility of the authors involved. Somebody may want to be first author, somebody may be wanting to be the last and corresponding author, some may be not so bothered about it, and somebody may want them to be approached and respected well, and somebody may be wanting to be maybe just a visiting professor in your university. So you have to be practical about it. Try to understand what are the aspirations that this person has. Fair things. Do not try to indulge into anything unfair, unethical, but within the ethical boundaries, there are aspirations that you have to address in the collaboration. As regards to that particular collaboration, the best is to restrict your collaboration and the deals that you make for the very purpose for which that collaboration has been made. For that paper, you define the scope of the collaboration is within this paper. So do not let this collaboration spill over to additional issues. But you understand it from the beginning that this author has come, this is a senior person, he would always want to be a corresponding author if he's on the paper. But clarify and discuss these points from the beginning. And some senior researchers may not respond to your request to collaborate. I have already mentioned, discussed this. But do not think that now you're too scared that I can't collaborate with senior people because they have so many problems. They have ego problems. They have they're busy, and you are too scared of them. No, problems are everywhere, top or bottom, everywhere. If you talk to junior researchers, you collaborate with them, you will often encounter conflict of interest. Somebody may be having, somebody wants to, a very simple conflict of interest may arise because somebody wants to publish too soon. He's going to face an interview. And you are not in a hurry to publish. You don't want to rush into publication because you think your research results are not ready yet. So there may be conflict of interest in very small, unforeseen decision making. So you have to work with really people whom you can build that trust and do not harm you. Another risk in collaboration. So it's all, you all understand the value of collaboration, but there are some drawbacks, some problems in collaboration. The risks that you are involved, you have to be aware of them. So you have to have credible people. The moment you discuss with collaborators, you have a big idea, very interesting idea, and you share it with your collaborators, and your idea may be stolen. So one risk is a collaboration risk. The data and research that you are trying to propose may get scooped. Sometimes it has happened. I have heard people complaining that they discussed with a collaborator, potential collaborator, this is what I want to do. And then this collaborator said, no, I'm not interested. And 2 months later, or a few months later, you will find a research paper published by that collaborator on the same very topic that you were discussing them with. Now, in this situation, you can't do anything. It is possible that when you were discussing, now you have to look at both the aspects. One is you were discussing your idea with your collaborator. It is possible that your collaborator already had that idea. So it is not necessary that the collaborator has stolen the idea from you. Do not assume this. But it is very much possible that this collaborator thought the idea is interesting, but he doesn't want to do this work with you. So he will assemble his own team and make this publication. So some unethical activities do happen. So when you discuss your idea with a collaborator, you have to assess the trust that you can put in the collaborator and to what extent you are willing to discuss your idea with this, or you want to take some preliminary stage your work, and then when you have already done some work, then you discuss your idea. So you are on a relatively safer side because the turnaround time for you is less to complete that work. But once you have started discussing your idea with others, then do not be slow, do not delay it, because the moment your idea goes out of your mind to others, this idea gradually becomes a public knowledge, and somebody can just pick it up on. Now, it is not necessary that your collaborator will steal the idea. Another aspect is your collaborator will just say, okay, I was discussing with my friend, and he or she has given this idea. And the person with whom you discussed has no ill intentions, but it just in an innocuous manner, it just got transferred to another person who stole this idea. Now, this kind of stealing may happen. Sometimes when nobody feels that they are at fault, everybody thinks they've done the right thing. So it is just a matter of miscommunication, and it is also at the first stage, it is a mismanagement from your side to be able, when you have an idea, when you have a research plan, when you have some results, you have to manage your idea, you have to manage your resources so they don't get stolen up. So another thing, we often say that a good research should be based on a novel idea. And now recently, a lot of people are talking about that idea is overrated. So there are some posts people have started writing that if you have a great idea that you want to set up a colony on the moon, this may be a great idea. But this idea itself will have no value if you do not have the means to execute that idea. One. Second is the novelty itself is not sufficient. So people are now saying that sometimes an idea that you think is so powerful will not take you anywhere. So keep yourself, do not rely too much on idea. Rely more on being grounded in the existing knowledge. So study more, read more papers, and keep reading all the papers that are there on the topic of your interest. Do not ignore them. Many of these ideas which you think are so novel ideas, somebody may have published it in a corner, or somebody may have not even written a whole paper on that idea. Somebody may have just floated that idea in the corner of his some other research paper. So if you are not reading others' papers thoroughly, if you're not keeping updated yourself in the field, then this idea is of no, this idea will, you will not know that this idea has already been floated, or this idea has already been rejected or been tried or whatever. So that is why it is important to keep yourself grounded in the existing knowledge. And for your quality research, do not totally depend on the novel idea. So idea is important. It is not that idea is not important, but you have to understand the scope of your idea. So like some novel ideas are rare, fancy them. Do not ignore that ideas. I'm not saying that ideas are not important, but do not overrate them, and do not just depend on idea without having a plan to execute that idea. So fancy your ideas, but do not be misled by them. Reflection without study is dangerous. So you just keep thinking and you keep on making big ideas, big plans, without actually having the means to reach there. You want to fly, but you have an ambition to fly, but you do not know how the aircraft works. So you have to have the right kind of a skill set. That skill set can be yours. Now here, when I'm talking of a skill set, I'll add one more point, that it is not, again, if you do not have all the skills required to perform a research, don't be discouraged. You can always set up a team of people who have the skills. So your skill may be just in the scientific management of the project, and to some extent on one aspect of the project. Out of the 100 skills that are required to execute a research, your skills may be just 4 and 5. But if you are committed and if you are good in coordinating research and assembling the team, you will be able to take this idea much further ahead than others who have 80% of the knowledge about executing that. Because many projects, many collaborative projects fail because nobody is coordinating them, even though they have assembled a big team, but nobody is coordinating them. So having a good coordination, having somebody who is consistently pursuing, who is monitoring the progress, and who has some scientific understanding of all the different components of the project, these kind of people are very, very important. And the project, they can rescue the projects, they can take the projects much further. So again, these ideas can be, do not depend in your research on flukes. Flukes may happen. You might discover something by chance, but do not depend on the chance discoveries. Okay, I skip this. So there are two types of research now questions that you can make. You can use an here. Either you already know that there is a scientific method to perform X task, and there are people who are interested in performing this X task, but this scientific method has not been applied on X. So your research may fall in the category of an application of an established method, so established elsewhere, which has been tested elsewhere, but it has not been applied to the system that you are studying. Or you may be trying to develop a totally new method. So in the field of scientific knowledge, these may be the two scenarios of what kind of questions you are addressing. So the idea of established methods will come if you are very well read. So if you are reading papers from outside your discipline, then you will get many ideas of this kind. These ideas are more practical. Ideas are grounded. They are coming from your reading. They are coming from your study. So these ideas are really executable and will take you longer. And if you are thinking, okay, people have done this work in this particular way, I want to find a novel way of doing it. So, but then if you are trying to introduce a novel way, new method, then new method has its own strategy how to establish a new method. So, but then the new method should be able to try to address an important problem, or actually more likely to solve multiple problems. So you have to assess your question in this context. So know your question well, review the state of the art in the questions being addressed. You compile literature about it. What are the historical backgrounds and efforts made to address this question? You test whether the new method will improve on finding answers to the formulated questions. These are the different stages. Again, these kind of approaches you will find in research methodology books, and you will find that how to approach research once you have an idea and once you have the skill set requires. So these are the standard approaches that people have to take. So now if you are trying to introduce a totally new method that has never been standardized, your idea is totally novel and it is about the methodology. So one is creating a technology from existing tools, creating the technology from the existing methods. Another is completely defining a totally new method. So you develop first a theoretical foundation of your work, why this idea you think will work, rather than going to the lab and testing and experimenting whether this will work or not. You first create a theoretical basis, you understand the science of it, and then before you execute, before you perform the experiment, try to see whether this idea is logically, scientifically correct or not, and then you proceed with it. And then when you write this paper, you provide enough evidence that the new method is either better than or alternative to an existing competing method. So that is how you must report in your paper. And very importantly, one, I must highlight this, a large number of papers, good papers, are rejected for just one reason. And that is the research is not reproducible. So what you do as research, it should be reproducible. You tell the protocols. So while you are performing the research, you write your protocols well. Sometimes you are trying to do some experiments in, say, life sciences or any field, and you suddenly found that it worked. But then next time you want to do it, it didn't work. So why does this happen to many people frequently? That sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. So these sometimes when it works, you have not kept a good log of it. So everything you do, you keep a good track record, you keep good logs that you are doing step one like this, step two like this. All these steps are well recorded. So you will know why it worked at this time and next time you tried it didn't work. So you will know exactly what is the step which is crucial for achieving a specific goal. So reproducibility is a very important component of quality, and many times works are computational experiments or biological experiments, papers are rejected because people find them to be not reproducible. Okay, I'll skip this. Now, once you have done your research, then your next question is writing the paper. Writing the paper is an art. And then you have to keep in mind that your good research paper should be coherent. It should give a convincing story. It should not go haphazard. You start describing one thing, you start talking about something else, and then you are going back to the original question. So it is more like a storytelling. So it has to be interesting. People who want to read it, who read it, they should find it coherent. They should not be lost. It is just like any other story or a movie. If the movie is going everywhere, horizontally, vertically, in the time future, time past, and so on, it becomes a mess of it. It stresses the mind of the viewer. So same way a research paper, if scientist is reading a paper and it doesn't have the continuity, and if it doesn't create the proper motivation, people may not, the referee and the editors may not like it, and the paper can get rejected. And if it is published, it may never get readers that it deserves. So it has to be the key element is that it has to be coherent story. It should have the right science and the science that connects with the current knowledge, and it should hold up, it should not be an end in itself. That is another thing that I come to this point. I skip some of that. Yeah. So it should not be that, okay, you are doing a research, you published a paper and now you forgot about it. You have to become an expert in something. You continue to perform your research. Your research paper is not a one-time activity. It is not a hit and run. So you have to your next papers should be relevant to what you have done in the past. Or if you're doing something totally new now, it should not be with the purpose that you are hitting this once and then after this paper is published, you will not look back at it. So that will maybe sometimes it work, it may give you a good paper, it may give you some citations because every time you are looking for new fields emerging, but you are never indulging in the romance of that question, and that is why you are forgetting after you publish the paper. So scientific research is not to just keep on collecting your statistics. You should be able to describe your research achievements. You are an expert of something. When somebody asks you what is you go for an interview for a hire for a promotion, and the interviewer asks you, okay, summarize your research. Your answer should not be, my research is, I have published 50 papers with these many citations. That's not the answer. Your answer has to be a scientific answer that I have been able to decode the principles of evolution in these species, for example. or I have been able to develop algorithms to solve image analysis problems. And over the years, these are my achievements. First, I addressed my questions in this way. Then I found these question methods are not working. Then I went to this approach. And so there, your your career in science should be a lifelong story. It may be multiple stories, that is fine, but these stories should not be just a collection of individual papers which are not connected to each other. So, and your research should lead to new questions. A good research is one, while you're performing research, you also find new questions that should be addressed. So next is your paper should be published in a good journal. So how to choose a good journal? So what you can do is, sometimes you do research and your field is very competitive and you are afraid somebody else will publish it before you. So now there are many, this is a realization among the scientific community. So many preprint services have emerged. So you can put your paper as soon as it is ready into bioRxiv, arXiv, ResearchGate, or other preprint services. And then you choose a journal based on, of course, choosing a journal based on impact factor is perfectly fine. But you also have to look for the relevance of the journal, that this is the paper, who you want this paper should be read by. Sometimes you write a paper, nobody should read this paper, only I should get a promotion. This is a condemnable approach. Your paper, you should try to your paper to be read and scrutinized, even challenged and questioned. So if your paper is scrutinized, read thoroughly and questioned, it gives you an opportunity to do better next time and to fill the gaps that have been left behind by this paper. So this is a dynamic process. Your paper is not an end to itself. Do not hide your paper. Let it come into the public domain, and that's why you are looking for the visibility of your paper. So when you choose the journal, now question will be, then how can I say that this journal is a predatory journal, this journal is a good journal, a credible journal? Impact factor may not always be the right parameter. Many times journals also have a way to, manage. I'm not saying manipulating. They have a way to manage their impact factors. So you have to look at, so I may not respect a journal of high impact factor so much, and there may be another journal of relatively lower impact factor. I may respect that more. So the reputation in the scientific community may be very important. And how do you get to know if you're not aware of those journals? So what you can look at, what you see, you can go through the list of papers that are publishing in journals. Who else is publishing there? So now you look at, are people from good institutes, good reputation on scientific community, are they publishing papers in this journal, or this is all some unknown people who have just one-off type of papers are they publishing here? Look at the editorial board. This is the most important thing. Who are the editors? It is just a market-driven exercise where they have just put the name of the person and the country name, and do not know what kind of research they have done. So do the members of the editorial board have a strong, credible track record in the scientific research? So you have to know whether they are predatory journals or not. And then there are many sites which give you a list of journals. You can look for the UGC care journals, and you can look at the Scopus indexed, PubMed indexed. So there are many indexing services, and from them you can assess whether a journal is good. But the two most important parameters where a journal is not really, you're not very sure whether the journal has a good reputation or not, look at the editorial boards and look at the authors who have published in this. There are other considerations when you choose the journal, whether you want your paper to be quickly published, because you are in a hurry for your professional reasons, or because your idea is very important. So you look at the rejection rate of the journal, acceptance rate. You can look at the published papers, date of submission and date of acceptance, how long they take, etc., etc. So then I warn you here that do not publish your work in a predatory journal where they're just you pay and you publish. Because once you publish in a bad journal, this publication will remain with you forever. And one bad publication will take very, very long time to be undone. If your publication, a bad paper or a publication in a controversial or predatory journal is associated with your name, if you come back to build your reputation of being a serious researcher, that reputation will become very, very difficult afterwards. So now when you communicate the paper, your cover letter, I again ask, I think I'm using a lot of time. So can I ask you once more, Nimita, is it okay to continue?
Yes, sir.
Perfectly
Yes,
okay,
Professor.
sir. We are not
Okay,
time
sir.
restricted. We are looking forward to hear.
Okay, thank you. So I was just getting a bit feeling guilty about time. So now when you write the research paper, cover letter is very important. Do not underestimate. Okay, do not write, okay, dear editor, I have written this paper, please publish. No, these are what editor in good journals have often require help from you. That what is your paper about, and many times if you are writing to good journals, yeah, they're getting thousands of papers every day, and they have hundreds of editors. Some may be getting hundreds, but depending on how general is the field, they may be getting a lot of papers. So they cannot send all these papers for the review, because reviewers are for the good journals are difficult to find. Experts are not available, particularly in a very state of the art and dynamic field. So they do not send all the papers for review. Sometimes they just send 20% or 10% papers for review. So how you have to convince first the editor that this your paper is worthy of being reviewed. And in order to get that kind of attention, that kind of recognition from the editors, you have to write a good cover letter. So your cover letter is not an abstract. It should, in general terms, you describe in your cover letter, okay, this is the work I have done in this paper. This is the question I have addressed, and my results are exciting. This is the emphasize one most important result or two most important results, and write them in the cover letter. And then you can also write what is the potential of these results. With if these results are held, then these results will be of great value for solving such and such additional problems. So this is what you should emphasize, the most significant elements of your paper. And then when you submit this, you will have to handle the editorial process carefully. Do not just put the paper together into PDF and submit it. Read the author instructions carefully. There are a few things which are very important. For instance, journals are very particular about the word limits. So if there is a 3,000 word limit for the paper, you have to make sure how they are calculating tables, how they are calculating the figures. And then they have this word limit for the abstract. So you have to look what is the word limit or character limit for the abstract. Sometimes they write methods first and the results later, and sometimes the other way around. Sometimes they will write they will have a structured abstract. Sometimes they will require additional information. So every journal will have their instructions carefully. How do you add references to your paper? This is also important. So you can use a reference manager and a tool for like an EndNote, or you can use Mendeley for a free service. So all these things. Now, once you have prepared your paper, once you start submitting the process, you will require high resolution figures. So get them ready. When you sometimes mere submitting to the journal may take several hours, 3-4 hours in the submission process. They will ask you to put the abstract in one text box, then upload the figures, and then when you start uploading the figure, then journal will complain the resolution of the figure is not high, and now you have to stop submission process because you have to now produce the high resolution figures. So do not waste your time there. Get your high resolution figures and illustrations ready before you start submitting. So have your figures ready in the original source, which you can edit and save them in high resolution. Many journals will also allow you to give the names of 4 or 5 referees, suggested referees. Here, be careful about what names you are giving. So you have to give the relevant names here. Do not just say, okay, I have 10 friends in the field, I'll give the names of the friends. So they will not go, most likely the journals will not use your name, your suggested names blindly. They will look at what are the, is there any conflict of interest, for example, they will check. They will also check whether the referees' names that you have given have really worked in that field or not. If they are not worked, they will not give. But yes, there will be predatory journals who will blindly use your names that you have given. But these journals are not where you should publish. Now, after the paper has been reviewed, you will get the comments from the reviewers. This is also another very important stage of the review of the paper publication. If your paper is rejected, now what most people do is your paper is rejected. Okay, I submitted in the impact factor 10, my paper is rejected. So I look for journals on the same field where impact factor is 5, and I immediately submit that. This is a bad approach. First of all, don't feel depressed that your paper has been rejected. It is perfectly fine. That is a routine life of a researcher. Getting rejected papers is a normal thing. And sometimes it is not even a real judgment on your paper, because the decision has been taken by 2 or 3 people. Maybe the larger scientific community will not have the same opinion. So don't be discouraged by rejection of a paper. But at the same time, do not rush to submit to the next journal. Try to see what are the questions that referees have asked. Make an assessment yourself whether you agree with the assessment of the referees that this paper should be rejected because this has scientific flaws. Or if you think that these questions are not correct, then it is fine. Then what you should do? You found the referee has given you comments, but you do not agree with that. And you want to go to the next journal now. So, and I'm saying that do not ignore the comments. So what you can do in this case is that the referee may have made a point because of the misunderstanding of what you have written. So you add that what normally if the paper they had asked you to for minor revision, you would major revision, you will write a reply to that question or the comment. So you write the reply to that nonetheless in your revised text. So revise your text in such a way that you are preempting this question again. So the next referee who will read this paper will not will find that will not be able to raise this question. Now, also remember that the referees are subject oriented, and if you are working in a super specialized area, it is possible that from the first journal you got the 2 reviewers, and you sent it to the next journal, the same reviewers get the paper again, and they will be very angry if you have not addressed your questions and they get the paper again. So do not provoke referees. They may or may not be biased, but even if you think they are biased, you have to address. You have to try to convince them. Just like you will convince your examiners. And you cannot depend on questioning their credibilities. Okay. So if the paper has been recommended for revision, what you have to do, you have to call. Sometimes what happens is that one referee says, I want these results, and this is very good. Another referee says, okay, these results are not important. Please delete these results. So sometimes referees' opinions may be contradictory also. So if the referees are not in agreement, you have to build your own assessment. What the comments you want to address, what are the comments you want to ignore. So, but always take the reviewers' comments seriously. It doesn't matter whether these comments are silly. You have to convince them. And if they have point-wise comments, your answer should also be point. Your answer should start, thank you for raising this question. I agree with this. Or you can say, thank you for raising this question. Unfortunately, I do not agree, but let me clarify why I do not agree. So your rebuttal has to be polite, and you have to be very clear about what you're trying to say. And then if there is a contradiction between the views of the referees, you decide and you say, okay, that referee 2, you are saying the referee 1 has asked this question, and referee 1 has this opinion, and referee 2 has a different opinion. But after carefully going through both the comments, I feel this is my view. And then you can write a separate comment to the editor who will have to sometimes adjudge when there is a disagreement. So now when the paper has been accepted, you have to promote it to the relevant audience. You can, again, if you had not done it earlier, you can submit it to the preprint servers now. You can email a copy to the people who are working in a similar field. You can also put your findings, a summary in ResearchGate, LinkedIn, and other social media. And you can present your published work. Now, 2 things which you can do, which are more proactive. One is take your paper in the form of poster abstracts to all conferences in the field you're working. Try to participate in as many as possible. Sometimes you may have a high registration fee, you may not attend it. That is fine. But as much as possible, try to take your work to more and more conferences to increase their visibility. Talk to people. When you go to a conference, don't just paste your poster in one corner and sit in another corner. Be on the poster, try to attract people. If people are not really coming to your poster, try to call them. You say, okay, I'll show you. Or go to another person's poster. You go to your and discuss with that presenter, and then discreetly and carefully introduce your work to them. So this is how you can reach. And then secondly, go to one step further, one notch higher. You organize your own conferences and workshops and seminars on the topics. So you have done work, you have worked on X field, and you do not find very interesting workshops and conferences on that topic. You organize one. So you can have tailor-made, customized, listen to others on the same topic, and then you talk about your own research in that. This will give you a unique opportunity. So I already mentioned this point earlier, that your paper is not a one-time affair. It is not a hit and run exercise. Your paper should continue and you should aim to become expert in the field. So you describe your research by contents and not statistics. So finally, I conclude here. So summary is that quality of research is a broad-based concept in which research contents, quality writing, and professional handling of the editorial process are equally important. So three components. Same way, the visibility of research can be attained if you have quality research, and then you can approach more and more audience, relevant audience, by disseminating it to relevant audience in a proactive manner, either participating in conferences or organizing these conferences and programs yourself. So these are some of the tips. There is a big field of trying to become famous researchers, good researchers, great researchers, and some of these thoughts I presented to you. I hope it helped you to brush up your what you may have sometimes not paid so much of attention to. And thank you for listening, and sorry for overshooting my time. I'll take your questions.
Thank you so much, sir. It was really refreshing talk. The session is now open for discussion. May I convey the questions from the chat box, sir?
Yes.
Yes, one of the participant has asked whether can we publish papers without a PhD?
Of course, PhD is not required to publish papers if you do the research in the right way, and if your research is worthwhile. There are many people who do not have a PhD and they publish papers. So this is not deterrent, and it is about the research content which is important, not your degree.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And there is one more question. And how do you evaluate the quality of research?
So quality of research in the practical context that I mentioned here is the um, relevant for the field in which you are working. So quality usually means whether it has been done rigorously. Some of the points I covered, how do we assess the quality? So whether the research has been done credibly, rigorously. So the claims that have been made in the paper, are they really, people can trust them? Are they reproducible? So some of these questions I already addressed in my talk. And then the quality does not mean publishing in a good journal. That is not the measure of quality. Publishing in a good journal becomes possible because you have a high quality of research. So high quality will be your contents is of a high quality, your question that you are addressing is of a high value. So these all are the indicators of a good quality research.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And one more participant has asked, what should we look in for a good collaborator before working with them?
So I think
Yeah.
I covered that in details. So the
Yes.
good collaborators, you have to
Yes,
look
sir.
for,
Yes,
you
sir.
can trust them at whether you need them for the collaboration and how you expect. So these questions I addressed in detail.
Yes, sir. And one more question is, does an increase in number of co-authors have a negative impact on the research paper?
No, I don't think so. So the number of co-authors does not matter, but you should not be adding authors randomly. Anybody who passed your lab during while you were writing the paper should not become a co-author. See, authorship, there are strict guidelines on the Committee of Publication Ethics. You can read about them, COPE. So read about COPE guidelines that what um, makes somebody eligible to be a co-author. If somebody is funding your research, he or she does not become eligible for becoming a co-author. So unless a person has made a scientific contribution to your work, you should not make that person a co-author. It is considered against the publication ethics. So there is an idea called author gifting. So you should not gift your authors. You should not say, okay, you write your name in one of your papers and I'll write your name in another papers. And it should not be done. That's why I was saying that this family level of collaboration also can be problematic, because sometimes you say, okay, my friend or my sibling or my family member needs one paper for getting promotion, I will add that name. So this author gifting is a technical term used for this. We should not add authors when they have not made a contribution. So as far as journal acceptance is concerned, it will not matter how many authors are there or not.
Okay. And how can we avoid the risk of publishing in a fake journal?
So predatory or fake journals, yes, I mentioned how to test, how to check whether the journal are predatory or fake or not. One good measure of that is that they will publish whatever you want. So you should always try to first check whether the journal in which you are sending your paper is this journal respected in the scientific community or not. And I gave you two major indicators for that. The one of them is the editorial board. You look at whether the credible people are part of the editorial team of that journal or not. And second was the what was the second reviewing process, and yes, reviewing process. I gave 4 pointers, and let me just stick to what I was saying. Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, now I should not have missed this point. So it is good that I saw it. So the second point is, one is the editorial board, and the second is the authors, previous authors of the journal. So you see, if the journal has just started it, you are trying to publish in the first issue, then editorial board becomes critical. And the publication house may also carry a reputation, but even publication house is not sufficient. You have to look at the editorial board. Who are the people promoting the journal? Second is, who are the authors that have published that paper in that journal? And not just who, what have they published? Sometimes, my friend is starting a journal and he's insisting, I'm starting the journal, please write. So some based on personal peer pressure, I may publish a paper, but I will not publish my best research into a journal I don't trust. So are they publishing the best papers, their best papers into the journal, and what are the contents? You read a few papers from the journal on the topic. Are they, and you look at the quality of, the formatting. Read a few papers which you can read. Are there many spelling mistakes in those papers? Are there many formatting errors? Are there good quality resolution pictures in that? So this will give you an idea about the quality of papers that are typically going there. And then you will know, okay, no, this journal is publishing completely low resolution and figures which are not even legible. I don't want to disrespect my research and become a part of that um, community of researchers who are publishing that kind of work.
Yes, thank you so much. I hope they have got the exact answer. And few more questions left, sir. Actually, so many appreciations have been pouring in the chat box. Shall I proceed with the questions, sir? Few more left.
Yeah, please, any number, so I'm fine.
Yeah. Which site can be considered as the best to publish our article?
Second.
Which site, which website probably, which site has can be considered as the best to publish our article?
So probably, I think the question is about the preprint services, right? I'm not sure,
Yes.
but site is not considered best. So there's no site for publication. Where we are talking of research publication in journals. So look
Journals.
at the journals. But the sites are typically, we are talking of preprint servers. So preprint servers, if it is a biomedical paper, biological paper, there is a bioarchive. There is a med archive also for medical issues, and there is archive for physics and other related journal papers, for computer science papers also. And so these are some of the ResearchGate is also publishing preprints, and many journals are doing it now.
Yes. And one more question. Does a single author paper good for the field and the researcher? I don't understand whether it is more clear.
Um, yeah, so there is a question on single author papers. So there's nothing wrong in publishing single author papers. Um, but having a number of authors on paper is helpful because it helps you to correct errors. Sometimes you have some oversights. If you have 2 3 authors, they will be able to give their inputs, correct the mistakes. So multiple authors coming together and addressing different questions of different aspects of the study that you are doing, it improves the quality in a normal way. But sometimes you may have come up with a single idea which you have completely executed. So single authors may be fine in this case. But in the professional context, as faculty members, um, your why are you doing a research publication? Your research publication is to produce new knowledge, but also your research is also aimed at training your students. So involving your students into your research ideas, if you have them available, is a good idea. So expand your expand your base and go beyond. I would say that single author papers should be an exception, not a routine for faculty members at some advanced stage. But sometimes you do not have students, you do not have collaborators, so you should not be held back because of this. So it is nothing blasphemous if you write a single author paper, but expand your horizons, have people involved. It is a good thing to do.
Yes, thank you so much. And one final question. Will selecting a good journal increase the visibility of the paper?
Yes, of course. Choice of a good journal is very important. You publish in good journals. So, but good journal, as I said, it is not straightforward to find out good journal, just high impact factor and all. Impact factor is one component of this, but not everything. So journals have a way to manage their impact factors. So sometimes relatively lower impact factor may be better if the right kind of audience are reading the journal. So journal should be relevant for the field in which you are studying, in which you are working. So yes, journals have, because journals have their own credibility, they own have the networks. So people are subscribed to the list of list of table of contents of the journal. So it will give you some quick visibility immediately, and then rest of it you can take further from there.
Yes, thank you. Any
Sir,
more
I do have
questions?
a query.
Yes.
Sir, consider that I have done a work. I have completed my work and I have published 2 papers in that work. If that is the case, whether the project or the work can be applied for a project funding.
No, it will be, there can be no post facto funding because the work has already been completed. So what you can do in this case, your published papers give you the credibility that you are capable or you are expert in that field. Now you have to propose in your grant application what next you want to do. In the grant application is not a reward. Grant application is a promise of doing something. But if it has already been done, it is you cannot promise it. So what you can do is you can take this next to the next step, that you can say that these are the 2 papers I have published. During these papers, these are my findings. But during this study, I have found that these questions remain unanswered, or these are the new applications of my methods which have not been addressed during my 2 papers. And this is what I want to do now. So this can be the basis of a grant application.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And being a faculty member of the institution, I would like to ask you if you would like to develop some MOUs with the Department of Integrative Sciences, whether it is possible to offer some certificate courses virtually, sir, to our students.
So we can discuss the framework. So we can connect to the administrative people in the administration. So you can communicate with me separately for this later.
Yeah, sure, sure. Thank you, sir.
So I have
I
a
think
question.
there from Sonu.
We are reading it out here. Yeah, Vinay.
Yes, sir. Thank you for touching upon this significant topic. And the question is like, if the journal is not listed in CARE or any indexed organization, the journal is in process to be included in CARE list. Will that be a good idea to publish in the journal before it gets enlisted?
So yes, I think there is no problem. A UGC Care Journal is not exhaustive or not. There are many journals included in the list where the top researchers may not want to publish. And there may be some journals which have not been listed yet for whatever reasons. So if you're confident of the credibility of the journals, it is okay to, but of course, that may not be counted for your immediate promotions if any of that is due for you. But as far as the scientific quality, as far as your research progress is concerned, that should not be a deterrent.
Thank you, sir. Hope you have answered all the questions and the audience have got a very clear picture of your today's topic. And we are really thankful for that, sir. Any more questions? You can also use the raise hand feature if you have any queries. Ma'am, if not, shall we proceed with the vote of thanks, ma'am?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. A grateful heart is a magnet for miracles. So may I now request Dr. R. Uma Maheshwari, Assistant Professor from Department of Biotechnology, to propose the vote of thanks.
A very pleasant good afternoon to one and all gathered here on this wonderful faculty development program, improving the quality, visible scientific research publications. On behalf of our college and our department, I would like to propose vote of thanks to our chief resource person. It's a proud privilege to have such an eminent resource person, Dr. Shandar Ahmed, Professor, School of Computational and Integrative Sciences, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. Thank you, sir, for gracing this FDP in spite of your busy schedule. Sir, your speech was so mind-blowing, which enlightened our minds and shown us a new path in improving the quality of research publications. Sir, the tips you have given for improving the scientific content of research through collaboration, innovation, investigation, and authentication is so thought-provoking, sir. Surely, we will get privileged by the following tips in our scientific research, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for your inspiring speech. Thank you, sir. Wholeheartedly, I must thank our management for their constant motivation for conducting various programs for the faculty upliftment. I would like to express our deep gratitude to our Madam Principal, Dr. V. Sujata, for her valuable presence. Thank you, ma'am. I prefer my thanks to Vice Principals, Deans, Controller of Examinations, heads, and faculty of other departments for their presence. Our heartfelt thanks to our beloved Dean of Science, Dr. H. Abhirami ma'am, for being the catalyst that stimulated us to do our best and is standing as pillars of strength for us forever. Thank you, ma'am. I'm happy to thank our head in charge, Dr. R. Rameshwari ma'am, for her constant guidance and encouragement in all our efforts. Thank you, ma'am. It's my privilege to thank all our faculty members of our department. They are the real rock stars for enormous cooperation in organizing this FDP a grand success. I must mention my sincere thanks to other participants also. I also extend my heartfelt thanks to our beloved students for their active participation in raising many questions. Once again, I thank everyone for making this FDP a resounding success.